138 MMA is back to break down UFC Paris from start to finish. Let's go. Here in our first fight of the night, we have William Gomis versus Jarno Errens. I probably butchered those names. They're both making their UFC debut, so bear with me on that. So in this fight, what I see is basically a bull matador situation. We've got Errens, who is very aggressive, can overwhelm his opponents. We've got Gomis, on the other hand, who's a bit of a counter striker, uses his range really well. Is the bull going to get the matador? Is the matador going to get the bull? In this fight, I'm going to go ahead and say that the matador takes the win. And with that, I'm going to say Gomis. So Gomis is going to be able to use his range, his counter striking, stop Errens on the way in. I'm going to say he gets it done inside the distance, but don't quote me on that. Could be a long drawn out fight, but I'm going to say Gomis gets the win. I'll take him inside the distance. And like I said, he's going to be able to use his counter striking. He's going to be able to use his range. He's going to be able to stop Errens before he can really get the ball rolling. Won't give him the chance to overwhelm him. So there it is. That's the pick. William Gomis. In our next fight out, we have Ailin Perez versus Stephanie Egger. Again, the names. Debuting fighters. Come on. You got to give me a break. But anyway, her only loss in her last 5 fights was a DQ loss. So she is 4-1, but that loss being in DQ. Egger, on the other hand, is 3-2 against a much higher level of competition. Perez here, like I said, she's making her UFC debut, but she's beating a bunch of tomato cans. So she's beating them in the way that you want to see someone beat tomato cans. She's making it look easy. She's basically walking through them in all of her fights, but the problem is none of them are very good. So it doesn't put a lot of stock into her wins because even though she's beating them really impressively, we don't know how she's going to do against someone who actually has some skill. Stephanie Egger, on the other hand, has fought some pretty high-level competition, and being 3-2 on her last 5 fights, obviously she's beating some of this high-level competition. Egger has submissions like crazy. Most of her wins are from submission, and that's probably because of her judo background. She's been doing judo since she was about 5 years old. But she is taking this fight on short notice, as we see down at the bottom, if you can read that. Zara was originally the opponent for Perez here, which I think would actually be a better matchup for Perez, especially making her UFC debut. Egger might be just a bit too big of a step up in competition. Something for Perez, though, she's a very fun fighter, as we see on the regional scene. You watch a lot of these fights, and the commentating's not in English, and unfortunately, I don't speak anything except for English. So, with that said, you don't really hear what they're saying, but Perez seems to be a heck of a fun fighter to watch, and you can tell joy and excitement in a voice, whether you know what they're saying or not, and that's something I was getting at. Perez is fun. When she wins, she's a blast. During the fight, she's fun. Leading up to the fight, she's fun. So if she can string some wins together, she could be a big potential name, but like I said, she's beating tomato cans. Egger's beating some good competition. She's also lost to some good competition. I'm going to take Egger here to get the win. I don't know what that mark was. It was something. Egger's probably going to get the win. She just got the experience in the UFC. She's beaten better opponents. And I think it's just too big of a step up for Perez, even though it is short notice. Moving right along, we have Khalid Taha taking on Cristian Quiñonez, stepping in on short notice to take the spot of Taylor Lapilus, who was taken out of this fight due to injury. So here, Khalid Taha coming in 1-3-1 in his last 5 fights. That's not usually something you'd like to see. Hasn't quite lived up to the hype that he had coming into the UFC originally. And Quiñonez looking to steal whatever's left of that. So making his UFC debut on short notice after an moderately impressive win on the Contender Series, going to unanimous decision. Looked good. Wasn't the spectacular highlight reel finish that you usually look for in the Contender Series, but still looked good. Taha, on the other hand, he's fighting for his job here. I can't see the UFC keeping him around much longer if he loses this fight to a guy who took the fight on just a couple of days' notice. And unfortunately, I think Quiñonez. Sorry, the UFC debuts. You got to give me a break on the names. Quiñonez here. I think he's got the better abilities here. More well-rounded, on a hot streak. I think he's gonna be able to piece him up on the feet. Fight gets to the ground, I think he's gonna be able to control it there. I just don't think Taha's got a lot left in the gas tank after this losing streak he's been on. It's unfortunate because coming into the UFC, he did look pretty good, and then just nothing ever since. I mean, I think he only had one loss on the regional scene when he hit the UFC, and it just never went his way. So I'm going to take the short notice replacement, and currently he is an underdog, so picking the dog here in Quiñonez, or however you say that. Anyway, sorry, Cristian. I hope you're not watching this and making fun of me right now, but I'm picking him to win, so there you go. Got the dog on the third fight of the night. Our next matchup is one I'm actually really excited for. We have Benoit Saint-Denis taking on Gabriel Miranda, who's stepping in for Cristian Siagos, who hurt himself on a toilet, I guess. So, Siagos, wish you the best. Hope your finger gets better. Careful with those toilets, man. They are scary. Anyway, so Gabriel Miranda here. We're going to start with him. He's 4-1 on his last 5 fights, making his UFC debut. Got a solid ground game on the regional scene. Like I said, he's taking this fight on short notice, so got to take that into account. But a lot of submissions on the regional scene. Looked really good. Not a high level of competition, kind of middle of the road. A couple of guys with losing records, a couple of guys with middle of the road records, type of thing. Nothing that stands out. No big names on the resume. With that said, Benoit Saint-Denis, he's tougher than a $2 steak. This dude can take a beating and he just keeps coming. Usually that's not a good sign. Usually you don't want that in your fighters. However, he's a strong grappler with stellar cardio. The guy will keep coming forward, keep pushing the pace, keep showing you who and why he should be in this fight. Former French Special Forces, so I imagine some of that plays into just his general toughness. With Saint-Denis here coming in on a full camp, training for a fight, whereas Miranda coming in short notice against a big step up in competition and a guy that's a real gamer, also a hometown fighter. So for me, I think this one's pretty clear. Saint-Denis should get the win. Shouldn't be too much to debate on this one unless we are all surprised and Miranda pulls out a sneaky victory, maybe with a submission off the ground. Don't think so, though. Next up, Nasrat and Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley. This fight has me perplexed because when it was announced, I immediately jumped on the Imavov train. I was like, yeah, Imavov's got this. Buckley's been sketchy in his last few fights. And then I thought about it, and I said, you know what? Buckley's 4-1 in his last 5. The loss I'm remembering, though, was a head kick knockout, which didn't look good. However, he's also a human highlight reel that has a bunch of those knockouts his own. So, but Buckley, I keep betting against the guy, and I keep getting proved wrong. In his last 5 fights, I think I bet against him all 5 times, and I've only got one of them. So, for that, that kind of scares me away from betting against Buckley. Again, I'm going to just let the cat out of the bag early. I think Buckley's going to win this fight. I do think Imavov's a very accurate striker, but he doesn't mix those up very well. For example, Imavov's typically going for the head. He's head strikes only, doesn't mix it up, doesn't go to the body, doesn't go to the legs. Buckley, on the other hand, he'll mix some shots up, but he also is going to hit you in the head and knock you out cold, whether that is a crazy kick or a punch or whatever. He does have a questionable chin, though. He has been knocked out a couple of times. Maybe that his chin's great, and he's just been hit just right a few times, but from what I can tell, you don't usually want to trust a guy that's been knocked out multiple times as far as their chin goes. I don't think Imavov's going to be able to get that done here. Buckley's a pretty big underdog, but like I said, I keep betting against the guy. He keeps getting better every single fight, and he keeps winning. The guy's 4-1 in his last 5, and he keeps coming in as an underdog. I'm going to take Buckley to get the win here. To me, I mean, that could just be a personal thing here, but there doesn't need to be much more on it than that. Buckley's got the... Buckley with the highlight reel knockout is my pick. Next, we have Michal Figlak versus Perez Ziam. This fight here is one that's got me pretty excited. So Figlak, another guy making his UFC debut, undefeated prospect, coming from Cage Warriors, stepping into the UFC after getting some pretty good wins on the regional scene. Perez Ziam, on the other hand, he was cut at one point, which I'm not sure why. He is 3-2. One of those losses, Terrence McKinney, which who isn't losing to Terrence McKinney these days other than Drew Dober. But he's got wins over the likes of Jamie Malarkey and Luigi Vendramini, which are 2 pretty darn good names, and those are fairly recent wins for Ziam here. Vendramini, I guess, is no longer with the UFC, but Malarkey, fighting very soon, has looked pretty darn good as of late. So Ziam, he's fought that tougher competition, solid striking. The guy uses his range well. He's got good speed in the hands and in the feet, mixes it up, kicks, punches, you name it. 6'1", that's the thing. So he is 6'1" for the lightweight division, which is massive. Very few guys at lightweight are over 6 foot. Ziam is one of them, so he can use his range obviously to win here if he can keep on the outside. That's going to be tough though, because Figlak is known for his pressure. He comes forward, just continues to do so. Zombies forward almost, but doesn't eat as many shots as you would like to think of someone who is a zombie. But he just comes forward, so good pressure. So it's basically going to be a battle of ranges. So if Figlak can close that distance and get inside, He has a pretty good shot here. If Ziam can keep him on the outside, I don't think that if Figlak's going to be able to do anything, as the reach and height advantage is going to be crazy for Ziam. With that said, the grappling defense of Ziam does need a little bit of work. So sometimes when he gets on the ground, he'll give up his neck or just kind of make a decision where you kind of think, what was he doing there? So it happens with those high-level striker guys, but he does use his length on the ground okay. So he is able to fight his way back up using that length, but all in all, I think this should be a really good fight, probably razor thin. I'm going to ever so slightly edge towards Figlak here. But, I mean, like I said, close fight. Ziam's fought the better competition, has a massive height advantage. Figlak comes in with a head of steam, making his UFC debut. Could be good, could be bad, depends how he handles the pressure. Coming over from Cage Warriors. But I'm going to take him to get the win here, keep his undefeated streak alive. I think he's going to close the distance and get the win. All right, next up we have Dustin Stoltzfus coming off of his first UFC win against Abu Magomedov. I shortened that first name. I've seen it done on the regional scene. There is no way I could pronounce that. Anyway, so for these two, it's 2-3 for Stoltzfus, 3-1-1. That one extra is a draw for Magomedov here. Magomedov, yet another UFC debut on this card. He's had 3, I think, fights before this one that were scheduled. He's had to pull out due to injuries, I believe it was. All 3 times, so lots of pulling out of fights for him. So there's that. Coming over here to Stoltzfus, he is 1-3, I believe, in the UFC now. So 3 losses in his first 3 UFC fights. Finally got that win over Dwight Grant in his last fight. Hard-fought victory. Close one at times, but he more or less controlled the fight with his wrestling. Striking could be better for him. He gets hit a lot. Stoltzfus is not really one to... I wouldn't say he's a striker. With that, he is primarily a grappler who has also been subbed 2 times in the UFC. 2 times. If you get subbed twice and you're a primary grappler, that is not a good sign when you're fighting someone such as Magomedov here, who has some really crafty grappling. He does come out of Dagestan. I don't know. Correlation, causation, I don't know. But does have crafty grappling. And something else, he's not exactly a slick striker, but he's a very savage striker. He has some wins in the PFL with some striking that is that it doesn't look what you'd call pretty, but man, is it effective. So I think Magomedov has this fight won everywhere this fight takes place, unless those lingering injuries are an issue. But if you ask me, this is cut and dry. Magomedov is winning this fight. I just don't see Stoltzfus getting the win. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments after this fight is over and you come back to this video and say, man, you are such a dummy. Stoltzfus dominated that. I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, you can ridicule me till the cows come home. Magomedov for the win. Easy one for him. That's it. Next, we have Nathaniel Wood coming off of an impressive win over Charles Rosa, and Charles Jourdain coming off of a really questionable but very, very back and forth fight against Shane Burgos. So 2 guys right here. First, I'm going to say this is going to be the fight of the night. Anytime you got Charles Jourdain fighting, it's probably going to be a fight of the night anyway. The guy is just exciting as all get out, almost to a fault, actually. In fact, that's in my notes, exciting to a fault. Jourdain does love a firefight, does not care about using his grappling whatsoever, unless if you give it to him, he'll take it, as we've seen before. But, I mean, it was, Venata, he got him in the Darce choke or something like that. But Jourdain, he wants a firefight. He wants to get in there, get the fans excited. That's what he lives for. And honestly, sometimes that is a hit to his detriment. In fact, I think that's what cost him the fight against Burgos. As basically any loss he has is probably going to be because he gets in too much of a firefight. But with that said, Nathaniel Wood, he will be fighting up a weight class from where he's made most of his career. So there is a red flag there. But he's a very technical striker with solid leg kicks. He looked phenomenal against Rosa, which I don't know how much he really put into that. Rosa's been 50-50 so far. I feel like he's around 500, maybe slightly under in his UFC career. So Rosa's all right, not bad, but Nathaniel Wood made him look like he didn't belong. This fight's close. This is a really close fight. The odds suggest that as well. I believe Wood currently is plus 120. So with that said, this one's going to be the fight of the night. It's probably going to the judges. I don't see a finish happening. Could happen. Don't see it happening. My pick here, I'm going to take Nathaniel Wood, and here's why. I think Jourdain is going to want to make this fight exciting from start to finish. And even when he can capitalize on some of his better techniques or better moves, lands a big shot, he could be able to use that to get some ground control time, land some ground and pound. I think he'll let Wood back up if he knocks him down. I think Wood is a skilled enough fighter to be able to bounce back and learn and read from the fight as it goes on. I do think Wood's going to be able to pull off a victory here over Jourdain, although it wouldn't surprise me if the fight went the other way. It is very close, and the only reason I'm picking Wood is sometimes Jourdain is more focused on having an exciting, fun fight than he is on winning a fight. So for that, I'm going to take Nathaniel Wood. That marker didn't work, but you know my pick. All right, so here we have Nasrat Haqparast taking on John Makdessi. In this fight here, Haqparast coming in 2-3 in his last 5, whereas John Makdessi coming in 4-1. Something I want to highlight here, though, is that 2-3, those losses are to Dober, Green, and Hooker. So all 3 of those losses are against some top-level guys. I know Hooker hasn't looked great as of late, but still, Hooker's one of the best to do it. This loss to him was a while back, so it wasn't after he'd been getting beat left and right. With that said, Haqparast's record doesn't exactly show how he's performed in the UFC so far. He's looked a lot better than that last 5 fight shows. Although some have said that he doesn't look the same after his knockout loss to Drew Dober. Dober, I believe, is the only person to finish him, but that guy's got thunder and lightning in his hands. Depends which one he hits you with. So for Makdessi, though, 4-1 in his last 5. His most recent win was over Ignacio Bahamondes. That's impressive to me because Bahamondes is another guy coming up as a hot prospect. Although it was a split decision win, that shows that even at 37 years old, Makdessi can still turn back some of these young prospects coming in here. And he is a crafty striker, able to use some of his veteran knowledge or whatever to be able to kind of dictate the pace of the fight, control what's going on, and obviously it's edged him out. 4 wins in his last 5 fights. He's been able to get those victories. Like I said, that Bahamondes win, although a split decision, is a pretty good sign for someone who is now 37. I believe that win was just last year. Taking on Haqparast, who does have a 4-inch reach advantage with some good pressure, good cardio. He did fade a little bit in the Bobby Green fight, but I don't think that was due to cardio. I think it was just from eating too many punches, which also isn't great. At some point, Haqparast is going to start to fade really bad from the amount of damage that he's taken in some of these fights, I do think. However, the slightest sliver of confidence, I am going to take Haqparast here. With that said, I've switched my pick on this fight multiple times, and this might not even be the last time I switch my pick this week. And if I do, I will make a video updating you. But so far, I'm taking Haqparast. This fight, the odds are ridiculous. Haqparast, this should be as even money as it gets, but it's not. But with that, I'm taking Haqparast here. But Makdessi's got a big shot here. Good opportunity to turn back another prospect in Haqparast, although he hasn't looked as great in his last 5. Like I said, against high-level competition. So let me know what you think. Here's what I've got so far. Haqparast, here's his chance to kind of turn back onto those winning ways and start making his way towards the top. And that's one of the reasons I'm taking him in this fight. We'll see. Here comes Saturday. I could be totally wrong. Makdessi could just flatten him in the first round, and that'd be it. And I wouldn't be surprised about that. Can somebody tell me why this fight is here? Why is this the third to last fight on this card? I can't for the life of me understand it. We've got Alessio Di Chirico taking on Roman Kopylov. Di Chirico 1-4 in his last 5 fights. Kopylov a sweltering 3-2, which is misleading because he is 0-2 in the UFC. So we have a guy who's lost 4 of his last 5, and a guy who is winless in the UFC, somehow the third to last fight on a fairly hyped up card, that being UFC Paris or UFC Fight Night Gone versus Tuivasa. With that said, Di Chirico does have a really, really impressive win over Joaquin Buckley where he knocked him out with a head kick. That ages really well. Buckley's been on a tear. That's Buckley's only loss in his last 5, as we saw earlier in the predictions video. But also in his last fight, he was knocked out in that same style by Al-Hassan. So Di Chirico, he's looked super average in pretty much all of his UFC fights, except for that one head kick knockout win over Buckley, like I said. well-placed kick, put him down. You hate to say lucky, because lucky's probably not correct. It's probably not a lucky shot. He probably works on that. He's a talented fighter, don't get me wrong. He did make it to the UFC. But if those two fight 10 times, I don't think Chirico wins more than half of them. I'm going to say that might be the only win out of those 10 times. Maybe I'll give him 2. Buckley is kind of chinning it from time to time. So with that said, going over to Kopylov here, winless in the UFC. The most embarrassing loss is that he had a submission loss, I believe, rear naked choke to Karl Roberson. Roberson's a kickboxer. He is not a grappler. He is not known for his grappling skills. Kopylov got choked out by him. So I don't know. This is my least confident fight of the night. I have no idea. Like, I'm going to make a pick just for the sake of making a pick. But honestly, if you argued with me even the slightest either way, I'd probably just say you're right, because I do not have a clue. We have a guy that's winless in the UFC versus a guy that's 1-4 in his last 5 fights in the UFC. I'm going to take Kopylov here, I guess. It will probably be a striking fight, so we don't have to worry about him getting subbed by someone who doesn't really have any submission skills. No offense to Roberson. I'm sure he has pretty good submission skills. I don't want him seeing this and saying, yeah, that guy's a real dick. Roberson's probably got okay submission skills. He's just known as a kickboxer. He's not known as a lights-out grappler, so that's what I'm saying there. So I'll take Kopylov, I guess. Like I said, please don't come back to this video. I normally will say you can make fun of me if I make a bad pick. In fact, I encourage it. But look, come on. I've got no idea. We're going to take Kopylov, but for argument's sake, it's only because I'm having to make a pick, because I did decide that it was a good idea to put out a predictions video, and this is one of the fights on the card. So, Kopylov. All right, we are now to our co-main event of the evening. We've got Robert Whittaker taking on Marvin Vettori, and I am very excited for this fight. This fight could headline most fight night cards, and nobody would complain. This is a great fight, and for the co-main event, it is a 3-rounder, which does play into my decision in this fight, so stay tuned. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and break it down. Robert Whittaker 3-2 in his last 5, whereas Vettori is 4-1. Interesting enough to note that all of the losses in these guys' last 5 fights are to Israel Adesanya. Both guys have lost to Adesanya twice in their careers, although for Vettori, one was much longer, further back than his last 5. So all of the losses are to Adesanya. Otherwise, these guys pretty much beat everybody that goes in front of them, at least in recent memory. We're going to start with Whittaker here. He's a decision fighter. So here's the thing. His last finish of an opponent was, I want to say, April of 2017, Jacare. I want to say that was Jacare that he finished. But he hasn't finished anybody in a long time. He's been fight to decisions. Not that that's necessarily bad, because clearly he's winning those decisions, except against Adesanya. But all of his wins have come by decision in recent memory. With that said, he is one of the best all-rounders to ever do it at middleweight, and still continues to be. He had a very competitive fight with Adesanya in his last fight there. He looks good at times. He actually won a couple of rounds, I would say. I scored it 3-2 for Adesanya. But it was a good fight. It was a close fight. Whittaker has a sneaky head kick. The problem for Whittaker and his sneaky head kick is Marvin Vettori eats head kicks for breakfast. That dude's got a chin like a bag of cement. Paulo Costa kicked him in the head, wrapped that thing right around behind the ear. He didn't even stun the guy. That guy has a chin that you can't daze him. You could probably hit that guy in the face with a 2x4 and he'd just keep coming forward. So unfortunately for Whittaker, that head kick might not do much other than score some points, but that could get him the win. With that said, Vettori, he is very steady, stays consistent. He's able to adjust his style for the fights, whether he stays on the feet and strikes, gets the fight to the ground, pushes it up against the cage. He's very, very consistent with whatever he needs to do to win a fight. Keeps a steady pace. You don't have to worry about him in like a boom or bust standpoint. He's not going to either show up or totally just, not even make it to the arena. Basically, physically he's there. Mentally, he's on an island somewhere. No, he's going to be there, consistent in every fight. And something else that is impressive about Vettori is the guy is super, super awkward, but somehow he still has fans. I don't know. I would like to root for Vettori. He does seem to have good character. It seems like a decent guy. that he showed a lot of his fighting spirit in that Paulo Costa fight, where Costa put him through the ringer leading up to that fight, making it at 205 instead of 185 after saying he was going to be at 185 the whole way until a few days before, and then I can't make it. Let's go to light heavyweight. So Vettori, I want to root for him. Dude's super weird. Everybody knows about the photo of him wearing his UFC trunks backwards. But with that said, this fight is a 3-rounder, not a 5-rounder. And I think, for me, that favors Whittaker. Why is that? Whittaker he's probably the better minute winner early. Like I said, Vettori is consistent, and he can start to rack up rounds as a fight goes on against most fighters. Obviously not against Adesanya. I also don't think so against Whittaker here. Whittaker's probably going to be winning the early rounds. I'm going to assume, and make fun of me if you will, and I'm totally wrong about this, we get a finish and whatever. I think it goes to decision. I think Whittaker's going to win rounds 1 and 2. Round 3 is going to go to Vettori. He's going to be able to kind of figure out what he needs to do. Whittaker's going to be hitting all sorts of crazy volume on Vettori with them head kicks and not able to put him down. So, but Vettori's just going to keep coming forward. And in the 3rd round, he's probably going to take over. But because it is only a 3-rounder, I'm going to say Whittaker's going to take this one on decision. With that said, Vettori's a decent underdog, and I wouldn't fault anybody for placing money on the dog here, especially with Vettori being his only loss in his last 5 fights to Adesanya. Only loss in the last 5 fights for Whittaker, also Adesanya, although that is 2 of them, but both guys have only lost to Adesanya in recent memory. It's a close fight, and the odds don't show that. Vettori has a really good shot here, but I'm going to take Whittaker, like I said, on the grounds that this is a 3-round fight, and I think he can win the first 2 rounds and go to a 29-28 decision. So, with that said, we got Whittaker. Why does my marker not work on these check marks? If anybody wants to send me some markers, let me know. I'll gladly take them. All right, see you in the next video. All right, before we get into the main event, you knew it was coming. I'm going to ask for the likes. If you made it this far in the video, if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and hit that like button for me. If this is something that you want to see on a weekly basis, me breaking down these UFC cards, giving you my perspective, who I think is going to win, maybe subscribe. This channel is going to be around. It's going to be here weekly. It's going to be consistent. You're always going to get my perspective on the fight. With that said, I would love to have you as a subscriber, and I would love to hear your feedback in the comments. I'd like to know who you're picking. Let me know what you think. If you think I'm wrong about some picks, come back to this video after the fights are over and we can kind of compare and contrast. I would love to have that back and forth in the comments with all of you. With that said, like, subscribe, comment. See you in the next video. All right, so we've made it to the main event. We have Ciryl Gane taking on Tai Tuivasa. So in this main event, I'm actually pretty excited for this fight. When this was announced as the main event, a lot of people said that the Vettori Whittaker fight should have been the main event. I don't think so. This is a great fight. We've got Ciryl Gane coming in 4-1 in his last 5. His only loss is to the champion, Francis Ngannou. Anybody that watched that, I'll be bringing it up in a minute, but anybody that watched that kind of saw how that went down. Tai Tuivasa is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Biggest win in those 5 was probably the knockout of Derek Lewis. That looked really good after he was able to survive a bit of a storm early on from Lewis and then flatten him with a big elbow. So we're going to start here breaking down the reach disadvantage for Tuivasa. Only a 75-inch reach compared to an 83-inch reach for Ciryl Gane. So that's 8 inches in reach advantage. I don't know if you know, but 8 inches, it's a big advantage. So Ciryl Gane, massive reach advantage. He's going to be the far superior striker at range. Ciryl Gane, I would say nobody in the heavyweight division can strike with him at range. His in and out movement is impressive. He has just enough power to put you down. Obviously, he's a heavyweight; he can put you down, but he doesn't throw bombs like Tuivasa. So that's what I'm saying when I say that. But he has good enough power, but he has great movement. So he can get in and out before you can even hit him, or before you even knew you were hit. Sometimes you're swinging back and he's already outside of your range and looking at his next entry point. So. One of the better, actually probably the best range striker in the heavyweight division by far, probably the best striker overall in the heavyweight division. So Ciryl Gane has a massive advantage there. However, we saw a glaring weakness when Francis Ngannou put on those wrestling shoes and just took him down and laid on him for a little bit. Didn't just lay on him like lay and pray, but it was close. But yeah, Francis Ngannou was able to take down Ciryl Gane with ease, and Francis Ngannou, maybe he has been working on his wrestling a ton and that's his thing, but as far as I know, he isn't a high-level wrestler. He's more of a striker as well. But yeah, Gane was taking down anytime that Ngannou wanted to, he would take him down. So clearly there's a hole there. Now, can Tai Tuivasa take advantage of that? I don't know. That remains to be seen. Tuivasa tends to like to knock people out. But something he does have that people don't often notice is his deceptive clinch game. If Tuivasa can somehow close that distance, which will be very tough because Gane is so good at maintaining his distance, but if Tuivasa can close his distance, his clinch work, if he can get you up against the cage, he will work you over. And those elbows, when he exits the clinch, are absolutely deadly. We've seen him flatten many guys in the UFC with that. Tuivasa hits like a freight train, and he can take a punch. We saw that Derek Lewis hits harder than most people. That's not a surprise to anybody to say, obviously. But Derek Lewis hits really hard, and Tuivasa was able to eat all of those shots, come back, and get a very impressive victory in that fight. I know Lewis hasn't looked the greatest as of late, but he still hits very hard. With that said, Tuivasa was on a 3-fight skid before going on this 5-0 run. So something changed. Obviously, he fixed whatever was wrong because he's been beating guys and making it look easy. Something that I will be interested to see, not really pertaining to the fight itself, is after the fight, if Tuivasa somehow is able to pull this off, with Gane being the hometown hero, is Tuivasa still going to be able to do his shoey? Will he get turned down? I honestly want to see him win just to see how that goes. Actually, I'm picking Tuivasa here. I think Cyril Gane probably wins this fight 9 out of 10 times. But similar to what we saw when Derek Lewis was on his way up to the top, all things point Cyril Gane, Tai Tuivasa by knockout. I think he's going to be able to get in the clinch at some point in this fight, and I think that's going to be the end of the fight. I'm not mega confident in that, but with Tuivasa being a plus 400 some underdog and having serious knockout power and really strong clinch game, he's worked on his leg kicks as well. He's just worked on his striking overall. The guy could eat a punch from anybody, so even if he has to eat a few to get in, he can do it. Like I said, he ate shots from Derek Lewis and kept coming. So with that said, I'm going to take Tuivasa here. Oh man, I'm going to catch flack from this in the comments after this fight if Gane just pieces him up for the whole 5 rounds. If Gane does win, I think if you're leaning that way, I think the over 2.5 is money all day for Gane because you can't bet Gane at -5 something or another odds and be confident in it. At least I couldn't. I do think he's a better fighter overall. I think he's a more well-rounded fighter. I still think Tuivasa wins. I think if you are on the Gane side, the over 2.5 is your best friend. I think if you're on the Tuivasa side, well, I mean, there's no reason to play anything but money line. If you want to toss some on the knockout prop, obviously that's his best path to victory. But I'm going to take the underdog here in Tuivasa, and I do think I've taken way too many underdogs on this card, so that's going to come back to bite me. I'm betting that my record does not look as good after this card as it should, but sometimes that's just the way it is. Sometimes the dogs cash, so I'm taking Tuivasa. Notice my marker worked. I switched it out, but I'll still take donations. With that said, like this video, tell me what you think in the comments, and I will see you next week for our next card, which I believe is UFC 279. So see you all there. Let me know what you think in the comments. I really love to know your picks. I want to know where we're at. And if you've made it this far in the video and you haven't done it yet, hit like for me, would you? See you next